Hi, everybody. I'm Q, and welcome back to my tapes. The power of beauty, its demise. What does it mean to have pretty privilege? What does it mean to be closer to systems of power? What does it mean when you're not? What does it mean when you do have pretty privilege? And what does it mean when you don't? We are going to be discussing this today. And if this is anything whatsoever you want to listen to, I need you to do two things. One, you need to watch this video. But number two, you also need to subscribe. Subscribe. I need this community feature. Listen, the sort of stuff that I'm about to say, you guys don't understand. I need the community feature. So go ahead and subscribe if you like anything you're about to hear, and comment. I love comments. So if you want to cry today, here's the comment section to do it. If you want to laugh today, here is the place to do it. Let's begin. What is the power of beauty? What does it mean when you do have pretty privilege? What does it mean when you do not? We are going to be breaking this video down into two major portions. In the first half of this video, I will be talking about what does it mean when you don't have pretty privilege? What does it mean in the structures of the power of beauty? I say this all the time. I've been thinking about this for years. I've been reading. I've been processing. Like, I experience things in real life, but then also I definitely would say over the past 3 to 4 years, I've really read a lot of studies on like, what does it mean to be perceived? What does it mean to align to what standards of beauty are as like an institution, and what does it mean when you can navigate that? So this will definitely not be the only video that I kind of make on this, just because there's so much to say. So the first video will be split into what does it mean when you do not have pretty privilege. The second portion of this video will be what happens when you do have pretty privilege. What does it mean when you are on the other side of that scale of the power of beauty? So welcome. After today, I probably will discuss the power of beauty in the context of people so that we can go through examples, which reminds me, a blueprint video will probably be the next video uploaded to the channel, probably Friday. Let's begin. Why do I want to talk about this? Like, what really is the prologue to this sort of conversation? The prologue is pretty much in the first 8 words of the title. The power of beauty and its demise. I've said this before in a couple of lives, which if you come to the lives, you know I've said this before, that either having beauty or not having beauty it's complex. I like to say that it's croissant layered. It's layered. It's not a binary. It's complex, and it's not as simple as it appears. So whether you do have it or you don't, it's almost like a lose-lose situation. I think maybe the context of this conversation would also be good to have maybe from just one purview. So like the purview of a woman, like what does it mean to be femme, like a woman or a woman presenting character in society. So you guys have the context. Let's go. I have some emoji questions in the video. So if you got this far, you got to put a notepad, get your notes ready, your pencil, pens. I need to see it. Okay. So what does it mean when you do not have pretty privilege? Let's start with dating, since we all like to start with dating. Oh my God, I hate it. I hate it so much. This is like this is the beef that I have. This is like the problems that I have when we have this conversation. That we start with dating. It surrounds dating. It circles dating. We revolve around the ideas of centering the way that you appear in the context of men and how men treat you, which is usually how this context is had, especially in regards to women presenting femme like peoples. I hate it, but let's start here. You don't get treated, the same story, but you don't get treated a certain way. Certain guys don't like you. You aren't regarded in certain ways. But, okay, and that's it. That's really all I really want to say about that, because I hate it. What does it mean when you don't have pretty privilege in the context of your life outside of men? Is access. That is what the power is. You aren't treated fairly. You are not treated fairly. It's not just how men perceive you, how maybe even having relationships in non-sexual or non-like companion factors, such as like friendships. Maybe some people will disregard you. But it also bleeds into things like access to healthcare, which is an example I talk about all the time. I talk about what does it mean to have access to healthcare if people are deciding between saving you and somebody else? What does that mean? What does it mean when you don't check off all the boxes? It affects your access to capital. The way that you look affects the way that you can navigate workspaces. And so not only do we have what we know to be very I'm trying to say the word meritocracy. So meritocracy systems. It's like we know that workplaces aren't based off of what skills do I have? What did you force me into getting by engaging into this like school industrial complex? And now that I've gotten out of the school industrial complex, or I haven't, but I've accumulated trades and skills, I am now not being evaluated. I'm not talking about myself, right? I'm not talking about myself. I'm just speaking generally, right? What does it mean when I now can't be evaluated off of the work that you have necessitated for me to do this labor as somebody laboring in the labor class? So we now know that it's not a meritocracy. We know it has never been a meritocracy. But now the way that you look and the way that you are perceived in the structure of power as it pertains to beauty and the privileges that come with that are withheld from you. So now you have a job. You have a job. People don't like the way that you look. So they'll say, well, we can't evaluate you based off of the numbers that you did and the revenue that you made this company, but by who we feel comfortable showcasing to clients and stakeholders and how you can be seen as a face of the company or a representative of the company, even if you're not like outward facing. This in turn could affect the way that you could progress in your life. You work all these years in a job. You work all these years doing a career. And people don't even want to well, obviously it's not equitable, but they don't even want to compensate you based off the work that you do. It's not fair. But I'm going through these different empirical examples as it pertains to your whole life and not just like companionship relationships, because I feel like it is so important to touch on what does it mean when you don't have pretty privilege. We could talk here and we could rest heads on shoulders to cry about the men that passed you up or passed us up. But then how does these sort of things bleed into the rest of your life? And I think that type of pain and that type of confusion is one that maybe I'm more invested in dealing with, you know what I mean? Because it's so serious. The medical example that I brought up near the beginning is true. It had to do with an EMT study that I was reading on the sort of victims in car crashes and how they were picked to get in like a helicopter or how certain people were chosen. And I probably should pull that so I can cite that for you guys so you guys can read that. You can read that journal article. TBD. So we'll see. I'll try and find it. But things like this are so serious. You have women who maybe you do look good, but and also I think it's a very important note that I have not included in regards to like pretty privilege, especially because like I'm Black, is the anti-Blackness that comes into what it means to be beautiful. Which is why you also have people saying time and time again that let's say you are in an intersection of identities where maybe you aren't dark-skinned, you maybe aren't thin, or you aren't fat. You don't have acne scars, or you do. Like, if you are closer and closer aligned to what it means to be systemically beautiful, which are white women, right? And the closer and closer you get to that goalpost, that maybe you should not be aligned to these powers of beauty. Even white women. White men treat white women like shit. People, again, I'm speaking empirically. I'm not talking about like things you see on social media or like celebrities, like, you know what I mean? I'm speaking empirically here. So it's just like, why should we not divest from systems that will disenfranchise you eventually or disenfranchise you in various capacities Even women, and we'll move into part 2 of the video because we're getting to what happens when you do have pretty privilege. What does that mean? Like, what does that mean? And what is the demise of that as well? We'll get to that. One more minute. So, why should you, as somebody, not divest from these sort of systems? Is a question that I'm constantly kind of working through. And it's something that I've thought about for different structures of power. For example, like patriarchy, like a lot of Black men are not like, you're not treated like well, but then why do you treat the rest of us like shit? Like, you know what I mean? Like, why is it that the structures of power that you get to benefit from, you don't divest from that to try and support the people who are lower on that totem pole and lower on the ladder, right? We can think of like gay Black people, trans Black people, trans Black women. We can think of like Black women who are cis, like, you know, so why don't we care about everybody else? And this is something that people have said before, including some people that come to my lives, like, you know, Tyra Rose, Kenroy, like Tiana, like a lot of people, Lynette, CA, a lot of people, Winter, like a lot of people, like, I'm trying to cite people. A lot of people have said, like, you know, well, this is, I hypothesize, because you benefit so much where it's like, why do I matter? What does it matter? Why does it matter that I need to care about people lower than me when I don't need to face the consequences that they face that aren't equitable and that aren't fair? And this is a mid question for the video. So if you made it this far, put like a question emoji, or put like a question, like, yeah, like a question emoji, like with the, you know, finger on the face, like, what's going on? A question that I've just been pontificating. And if you have any other ideas on why you feel like certain people who benefit from certain systems choose not to divest, like, I'd love to hear this as well, especially as it in the context of this video of what you look like. So with that said, let's go into part 2, the power of beauty and its demise. What does it mean when you do have pretty privilege? Fine, let's start with the guys. Once again, let's start with the cohabitation, the relationship, the companionship. Let's start there. You're treated great. People, maybe they buy you stuff and they buy you drinks. People utilize portions of irrational thought and ego to date you, which is what attraction is. Attraction is nonsensical, right? It's ego, phobias and isms, right? You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying that to slight people. Okay, I'm not trying to say that to slight anybody. I'm just saying, and I'm sure, as you know, which we will discuss, the demise. Like, what does it even mean to be beautiful or be closer aligned to like beauty? And what are the problems that come with that? Surprisingly enough, there are institutional things that I mentioned in the first group of women, or the first group of people, that also affect you in different ways, like healthcare. That's why I said it's like a losing game, especially for women. You lose. I've said this before. People who are aligned to these structures of power, in certain circumstances, if they fit certain intersection of identities, even if they do get to benefit from some of the perks, they are still not empowered. Does that make sense? They are aligned and they are closer, but they don't actually themselves, they will never be given the authority. Does that make sense? Which is why I talk so much about collective workings. Like, I talk so much about the idea of like, oh my gosh, we could figure out a solution and fix this together because we have the ability to mobilize as more of a collective and a unit to resolve some of these issues or to request fairness. Which is why I also believe that if you are out of your own, like, nobody, and I'm not here punching down, you listen, I don't like the fact that I even have to, pretty people who are thin, like, you know what I mean? Like, there are thin people that literally tell you all the time, like, bro, like, nobody is blaming you because you can't put on weight. Like, nobody said that. Nobody is blaming you because your face is more symmetrical, or you're lighter skinned and you have greener eyes, or you're mixed, or you're white. Like, nobody is blaming you. Nobody said, oh, I couldn't control it, so why are you guys blaming me? I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I hope nobody is going to be saying that in this comment section. Don't even try it. Don't even try it. So, you do have access. You do have perks. People do like the way that you look, and you get certain benefits from that. And it feels good. It's great. It's great. It's irrational. It's not like meritocracy. Please replace like the present state now, like merit. I can't pronounce it. I'm so sorry. It's not fair is what I'm trying to say. It's not based off of merit. It's not based off of like necessarily fairness, right? It's irrational. But what are the institutional implications of you being beautiful? We can parallel how you can get a job, your access to capital. If you have an access to get a promotion, whether or not you actually can perform the work that you do, that can affect you getting more money and getting more access to capital on work that you don't need to produce results from. Are you following me? And this comes obviously in the form of things that we talked about for men. Like you could just walk to the store. You could be given things for free. Like, you know what I mean? Like you could be given things. You can be given resources and things that people would not have access to. Let's go on to things like, I mentioned like the workplace and access to capital in that regards. Let's get on to things like even schooling. You are treated better. People think you're nicer, which I think I want to talk about that more in the context of law. So I'll do that, and that'll be the last example, and I'll talk about the demise, and I will end up the video. You are treated in better ways such that people regard you differently. People are creating in their minds different purviews of who you are as a person, and you might not even need to open your mouth. You could just like sit there. You could literally just like sit there. You could laugh, you could giggle, you could frown, and people are creating things in their mind about what it is they feel who you are, which is nonsensical, right? It's absurd. It's absurd. It doesn't make any sense. And then the last example I give is, how does that bleed out into things like law? Like, how does that affect like your safety and your access to like equity, People can think, oh, how could this person commit a crime? Like, they look so beautiful. They look so enchanting. Like, look at them. Like, I think you're better. You're great. Which goes on to this pseudo perception, like pseudo reality that people manufacture around the way that you look, which now brings us into the demise, which people I feel think isn't real for people who look beautiful. And it's like, I'm not, and the only reason why I'm giving these examples is because I just want people to understand, like, it's multi-layered, it's multifaceted, it's complex, it's multi-layered. I said that. And there are problems that come with that I find unnatural as somebody who is not like this extremely beautiful person that I couldn't necessarily imagine being put through, God forbid. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about healthcare. So people don't know this, but studies also show that people who are perceived beautiful, while they are able to receive perks in society, can affect them as extreme as it is that people would act irrationally is also the same way that people would also act irrationally in the same environments. So let's talk about healthcare. You being very beautiful can affect your access to mental health care, and people taking diagnoses seriously and discouraging you from getting certain types of qualifying tests to see if you have diseases. This is true. This happens. An example, oh, you're very beautiful. Why would you have depression? Of course, I don't want to give you meds. Like, what do you have to be sad about? Very disturbing. You sit on like and obviously this is very like woman, like that's a very specific example as it pertains to like a woman or a woman presenting looking person. Very, very disturbing. There are people who, you're very beautiful, and because people act very irrationally and assign all this value to things that are irrational and not fair, it affects your ability to socialize properly. Who are the people around you? There are studies showing that a lot of people who are regarded as very symmetrical in the face as well as thin, like, and of course, as closer to being white or like as close to being a white person as, the standard of beauty is based off of like racism, is based off of white supremacy. You don't get to socialize properly. People trip over themselves. There are studies showing that beautiful people are also very paranoid. Like, who are the people around me? Are they jealous? Jealous people are dangerous, as we know. Applies across the board. How does that affect your ability to make friends? How does that affect if you get into a relationship and then have children? How does that affect your ability to relate and spread social cues down to children? Your reaction time, because you expect, oh, well, somebody usually is in the position where they step in. How does that affect me? And of course, it affects beautiful women more and more as they age. They start to see kind of these issues, right? Because society doesn't value older women. They don't value, they look down on older women. It's very ageist and very misogynist, right? I think the last thing I want to say about the demise, as it pertains to beauty, of people who do get perks of being pretty in society, is obviously that they're people. And so what happens if you're a person that people irrationally disregard your thoughts based off of the way that you look? Who do you talk to when you now need to go to a therapist or a psychiatrist and they say that they don't want to prescribe you meds? Because why would somebody who looks like you need medication? And then they fall into things like depression. I can't socialize. How do I make friends? People don't want to be my friends. People do want to be my friends, but maybe because of the way that I look, or the way that I act like a weird person because I've never had to go the extra mile and socialize correctly because people continuously give me the benefit of the doubt. So now the friends that I do have are coding like my actions in certain types of ways that I'm not quite sure I'm picking up on properly, but now I feel isolated. Now I feel paranoid. So are these people jealous of me? It's a cycle of like pain, which leads me to the conclusion of this video. I said this near the beginning, but I'm going to say this again. I am deeply invested in people who have intersection of identities that they get a lot of perks on in society, divesting from these systems, because it is also quite detrimental to not just the people who are ugly or fat or have acne scars or darker skin or black, you know what I mean? It also affects people who do align to these structures. Y'all see, I was really mincing my words because I was just like, I want to take us through this. We need to all get on the train and go on this journey, okay? Harry Potter style. Percy Jackson style. Has Percy Jackson gotten on the train? Okay, so I think I'm going to stop here. The last thing I want to say as it pertains to beauty, really quickly, is going back to the companion thing. And I have no beef. Once again, I have no problems with people talking about the pain that comes with, like, I have been socialized in a way to value my proximity to men and my ability to be in relationships as being higher than other people. And so I am traumatized. I am quite traumatized when that is not the case. And I want to cry about that because, like, how do you even disengage? How do you find your self-worth outside of the purview of like men or patriarchy, right? Or white supremacy? How do you purview yourself outside of the scope of these, like outside of the limitations of white supremacy? And so I'm not saying that that is not very jarring and very scary. And I would also describe a very bizarre experience, which is why I brought up the school example and the access to capital and the workplace example for both parties. Because it's like, how do you now navigate society when you know that things aren't fair? How do you navigate when you know that it is not a meritocracy? And what does it even mean if you do have it? What does it mean when you do not? Some things that I've thought about. I'm going to continue chewing on this. We are going to discuss this more, but I'm going to stop here. Thank you so much for listening to another one of my tapes. I'm so grateful for... What did Kiana say? I'm a moving Abby. I'm your favorite Abby friend, okay? So let me know if you have any questions. If you made it this far, please put a fruit emoji because you're so sweet. Oh, sorry, I covered my camera. You're so sweet. Put like a banana emoji or like, what did I eat today? Strawberries? Are there strawberry emojis? Put that down below. Oh my gosh. And I will see you in another one of my tapes. Bye.